simple question. We just move it another day, and Joe says section 1 won't allow you to do.
This will be Sunday again. Last year we did move it to Sunday. The parents were coming.
No good alternative. How are you? Well, thank you. How's school going? Yeah.
That means we're doing our job.
My kids always ask me what's on the agenda before I come to the board meeting. I always say, I need 6th grade and 4th grade to have tons more homework. Yeah, so that's what I'm working on in this meeting. Yeah.
We ready?
Yeah.
Turn this on.
I think it's.
Oh, okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm sorry we're getting started a little bit late. We actually were talking about the ongoing superintendent search for a few minutes in executive session. I just wanted to call to attention, especially for our friends in YouTube land, that we have a system for submitting questions during the public participation part of the meeting. So there's a link on both on the YouTube page and also in the agenda for the board meeting that will take you to a form where you can submit a question. That form will become, it's not live at the moment, but it will become live when we get to the public participation part of the meeting. And so that will permit those participating remotely to ask questions. So we hope that goes well, and we look forward to your feedback. As many of you know, we completed a Board of Ed communications survey that closed, I think, this past Saturday. We had a pretty good response. We had 195 responses, and then of those 195 people, we had, I think, about 40 people who shared even more information with us through some really interesting comments, and we are still digesting it all. And I actually hope we'll be able just to share all of the comments, or at least provide some somewhat of a picture of the kind of feedback that we got. But my own impression was that nobody really thinks right now that we communicate too often, that we could clarify kind of the chain of communication for people, so we will work hard at that. I think people want a regular reminder about what the goals are that we're working on for the district, and we can definitely do a better job of communicating about that. I will say we sent a list of those goals that we sat down and discussed with Dr. Montesano this summer. We sent out that list in an August 23rd communication. Pretty much at each board meeting, we try and address each of those goals and the progress that we're making on them. But I think one of the things we will try and do is to not force everyone to go searching for that August 23rd email, but rather to get those goals up on the Board of Ed page so that they're easy to find. Few people commented on the importance of quality versus quantity in our communications. I think that's excellent feedback. And we look forward to continuing to digest the results of the survey, and we thank everyone for their participation. the note of board goals, I just want to take a moment to just walk through the goals and to provide a brief update on where we are. The first one was related to a transition to our interim superintendent. We've obviously named our excellent superintendent, Rachel, for next year. Mentor and support new principals at the middle school and the elementary school in process, going well. Support the superintendent search process. We just had a call today with our search consultants. Our ad has been out there for just a couple of weeks, and so far the response seems to be very positive. We will publish an updated timeline shortly, and we expect to be meeting with semifinalist candidates in mid-November and conducting interviews in early December. Continue to improve communications to the community, particularly about curriculum. The communications survey was a part of that effort, as has been the updated curriculum timelines. Continue to moderate advisory discussions involving multiple constituencies. The next meeting of the advisory committee is Monday night. The goal for that meeting will hopefully be to start to pull together some conclusions on recommendations to the board for diversity and inclusion and the role that and how it relates to our community in particular. Participate and support the district's 100th anniversary celebration. We've had a great celebration. I'm sure we'll have a little bit more this year. And consider where feasible earlier discussions on annual budget planning. Those of you who attended the workshop, the last budget workshop, saw us kick that off a little bit, and we're going to actually start the November 7th budget workshop a little bit earlier so that we can continue to have some more strategic and earlier discussion on the budget. I just want to remind everyone of the December 22nd community reception for Dr. Montesano. Please make a note on your calendars. It's a busy time of year, but we hope everyone will have a chance to stop by. And the other date, which I think is later on the agenda, is there is a NPC open meeting, I think, on
15th,
Tuesday, November 15th. So please feel free to stop by with any questions for Dr. Montesano or myself about the functioning of the Board of Ed. And that is all I have.
Great. Thank you. That's a lot. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see people come out, and for those of you who are watching us, welcome. Just a couple things on my report. First, I wanted to let everybody know that New York State has declared this as National School Boards Recognition Week. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize our board members and thank them for their work, for their volunteerism to our community, for what they do for our school district. It's not always rewarding, but I hope it's very rewarding when your time is done here being a board member. So thank you for your participation and support and what you do for us, and more importantly, what you do for our kids, because that's why we're here. So thank you, and you're recognized now. I also wanted to let the board public know that we received some good news about one of our staff members, a high school science teacher, Stephen Kalvari. And I'm just going to read this because I'll get all the words wrong. So Ann, if my science is off, please correct me. But Stephen's been awarded by NASA the position of Associate Researcher and STEM Education Expert at NASA. He continued to teach at Bronxville High School, participate in NASA research on the project Climate Change in the Hudson Estuary, Past, Present, and Future. The project studies carbon sequestration in wetland ecosystems, in particular the Hudson River ecosystem. He hopes to bring this work into his classes, share with the K-12 science department. In particular, the work, as well as the partnership with NASA, will help to build and expand our research in the Bronx River research courses and the K-12 program that studies the health of our local ecosystem, the Bronx River. Stephen, I know, is very, very excited. There's more detail to it if anyone's interested, but he's very excited. We're just beyond thrilled that he was selected for this prestigious opportunity, and I can't wait to see what he brings back into the classroom with our kids. So, Stephen, if you're out there, congratulations, and to you as well. The last thing I want to report is athletics. The regular fall season is coming to a close with our last football game, which we played on Saturday. You may have noticed that we brought in some lights at the field for the game. That is because of a couple of reasons. It was originally scheduled for 1:30, but first of all, it's ACT day, and so you can't start games before 2 o'clock. And then second, our boys varsity soccer team is in the playoffs, and they're hosting a playoff game on Saturday that will begin at 2 o'clock. So we looked at a number of options and thought that starting the football game at 5 o'clock is the best alternative, and we brought lights in to help in case it does get dark pretty quickly now. So quick update on that. So we have the boys soccer game, the girls soccer team plays tomorrow, and we have our field hockey on Monday. Go field hockey. So it's been a very successful fall season for us, and Joe, thank you for your work in putting all that together. Appreciate that. So before we have the student presentations, I'm going to ask Isabella to give her report, and then we'll go to Mara, who's going to introduce our student presenters tonight.
Hi everyone, I'm Isabella. A lot of you already know me, but I'm the student rep to the board. It's my first meeting back this year, and also I want to let you know we're actually going to have a junior joining me in later meetings that the SFL chose. So just the beginning of the school year has been very much in full swing. All the clubs are very active, classrooms are back to normal, classes are very vigorous and normal, and I feel like there's no more like COVID leeway that was happening a lot last year. There's no more Zoom classes. Homecoming happened pretty early this year. It was in September with all of our traditional events, which was fun. We had the bonfire, pep rally, all of our games under the lights. And something really exciting, I think, this fall was, obviously, it's the centennial of our school this year. And the PT has done a really good job planning a lot of awesome celebrations. We have the galleries in the atrium and in the auditorium lobby. We had speakers come in over one weekend, and we've had tours around the school for alumni class reunions that are led by students. I actually got to take around the class of 67, which was really cool. I had a pair of high school sweethearts in my group. That was fun. It was really sweet to see how much they appreciated all of the improvements that the school has made, which has been a lot of drastic but really great improvements over the past couple of years, decade, but also a lot of the things that stayed the same that they recognized. And it was just greatly appreciated by everyone. Another thing is this year, we really revamped the freshman transition program, which is a program where upperclassmen leaders, usually seniors, but this year we opened it up to juniors. They will be sort of student mentors to freshmen going into high school and help them through the transition. So this year we're doing a lot more frequent activities with our groups. The leaders are working with guidance and just trying to make it more engaging, more frequent, more fun than previous years. We went to Boundless Adventure, which is a high ropes course. That was a lot of fun. We've come in and talked to them about stress management, as they've already had a couple of weeks of school and exams, and we're planning some Halloween events coming up. So there's been a lot going on with that. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so the SFL did a fundraiser selling pins and bracelets and baked goods. There's been a lot of activity with that in sports teams, charity games. Field hockey had a pediatric cancer awareness charity game, which was very successful. And clubs have been very active. Bake sales, Model UN just had a car wash because we're going to send kids to Princeton for the conference in November. Class car washes, everything really just back in full swing, which is really good to see. For seniors, it's college application season, which I'm getting so lucky to have to experience this year. It's very much at the front of our minds on top of all of our regular schoolwork, but although we're getting pretty slammed, the support from the guidance department is very helpful, and we get a lot of emails and reminders of what we have to be on top of, and I think the school does a really good job of helping us manage everything and get ourselves organized. So that's all I have for you today.
Thanks, Isabella.
Thank you.
At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mara, who's going to provide an introduction and introduce our student presenters.
Good evening. It's my pleasure tonight to have 3 of our 9th grade students join us to share their reflections on the Bronxville Promise and how it is helping to shape them. The reflections you will hear tonight function as an assessment of sorts, in addition to the quantitative information included in the achievement profile that was shared with you a few weeks ago. These reflections help us to benchmark the system in terms of achieving the vision of the Bronxville Promise. The reflections you will hear this evening originate from an exercise where students review coursework, co-curricular activities, and even activities that occur outside of the classroom, and reflect on how these experiences help them to develop as innovators, critical thinkers, engaged citizens, and leaders. Currently, this is done beginning with our 5th graders, again at the end of 8th grade, and seniors enrolled in our internship program, also known as WISE, do an intensive reflective process. As we discussed at our last board workshop, in addition to the quantitative measures, such as the transcripts, the Bronxville Promise serves as our North Star, or the profile of a graduate we aspire to deliver to the broader community, who will be prepared to make something new from what you know and make the world a better place. While we often refer to the Bronxville Promise in terms of the dispositions of critical thinking, leadership, innovation, and engaged citizenship, the promise also reads, to innovate, discover, and create, to make something new from what you know, to find your voice and communicate clearly in order to lead with passion and persistence, to think critically, explore nature, history, and culture, to gain the understanding and courage to change, to collaborate and serve, and to engage with the world around you and make it a better place. As you will see tonight, these reflections begin to serve as a guidepost for how students might develop their personalized learning pathways constructed from the tenets of the promise, which we believe will continue to make our school distinctive. I hope you will join me in welcoming these 3 wonderful student presenters, and we're going to begin with Walker Moore.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm very grateful to be speaking before you tonight. The Bronxville Promise means a lot to me. It has always been there to remind me of why I come to school so early every day. It has always been there to remind me why I come to school so early every day. Opportunities are a very confusing thing. You don't know when they're given or why they're given. Are they given because of hard work, or do they just arise? One opportunity I was given was in the 8th grade to become the captain of the modified football team by my coaches, Coach Lou, Coach Dan, and Coach Malloy. I remember after one practice during preseason, they pulled me and my soon-to-be captains aside and congratulated us for a good preseason. They then congratulated us on becoming the captains for the new season. They then went into the responsibilities of being a captain, to always be there for your teammates, to lead them, and to always have them be excited and focused during practice. These principles then led to a successful season. As the season, by the end of the season, we were undefeated. Success for our team was a mix of talent, focus, and chemistry, as relationships on and off the field were very strong. Coach Lou always loved to over-prepare us for games. And going into Westlake, Coach had told us that it was going to be a battle. By halftime, we had realized that Coach was right. We were frustrated as the score was 0-0. But Coach was able to light fires under all of us. He told us that we were playing good football, and we just needed to use our chemistry and the things we had worked on in practice to score and complete drives. We had worked hard all week, and we need to really apply what we had learned. This worked because we never wanted to make Coach disappointed. After halftime, after the speech, we were still mostly unsuccessful, but rolling into the fourth quarter, after a good stop on defense, we were ready to finally win the game. After a good drive on offense, with only a few minutes left, we were excited to finally win the game. I thought about what Coach Lou had said at halftime and decided to repeat it in my own words in the huddle. We are one play away from continuing our undefeated season, and we have worked too hard to come up short. After I said this, we ended up scoring and winning the game. All of the push-ups, sit-ups, and scissor kicks had finally paid off, and they have taught me how important leadership is during times of pain, as hard times create strong men. Lou always said that communication and leadership were the most important weapons on the football field. These weapons have helped me during 9th grade to become the class president this year. I've learned that communicating and leading my classmates have been a huge part of being the president, and also how important chemistry is just to lead your classmates. Just as I learned on the football field, I learned that no one can do it alone. Coach Lou would always be there for the team, as I hope to be there for my grade by being the class president. Just as the promise has many parts to it, a successful person must have many parts to themselves to be considered successful. I hope to use the lessons I have learned from my coaches, teachers, and mentors to become a better student athlete, and most importantly, a leader. Thank you.
John Shaw.
Hi everyone, I'm John Shaw, and I'm very excited to share to you what and how I learned about the Bronxville Promise. More specifically, leadership and collaboration. This is Newton's Cradle. As you can see, 5 balls are in perfect harmony under the guidance of my hand that is releasing the first ball perfectly straight. Why am I showing you Newton's Cradle? Well, the balls in Newton's Cradle, I learned, show the properties of a well-functioning team. It was a sunny day 2 summers ago in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, when my family was on a bus going to the Snake River. We were going whitewater rafting. My siblings and I were anticipating what to expect, as our only interaction with whitewater rafting was the dangerous, intense reputation it has. Once we finally arrived at the Snake River, we prepared for our journey by collecting ponchos and life jackets. Afterwards, we found our guide who told us what we need to do to succeed, and she went over what to do in the event of falling overboard. After getting our paddles and pushing the heavy raft into the water, we were finally off. In whitewater rafting, you do not encounter the rapids the whole time. In fact, the majority of this voyage was calm water that we needed to paddle through. Our guide was a great leader. Not only did she steer the raft with her paddles, she steered me, my brother, and my sister with her words of encouragement. She warned that in our family of 6, if one person decided not to collaborate while paddling, our rhythm would be messed up and paddles would collide. Similar to Newton's Cradle, if one ball goes to the side, the whole rhythm falls apart. She played the role of the leader, the hand that released the balls in a perfectly straight line. She made everybody collaborate and coordinate. We finally reached the first rapid. I remember thinking how this was pretty intense and asked the guide what would be the most intense rapid we'd go through. She replied, a class 3 rapid, and I remember thinking, uh-oh, because that meant that there would somehow be a rapid 3 times more intense than this one. As we approached the first of the 2 class 3 rapids, our guide motivated everybody to paddle as fast as we could and work as a team. It, even more than the first rapid, required everybody to be in perfect rhythm, so our paddles did not collide at this rough rapid. We were trying to avoid chaos. We had a great experience. We got through the rapids, and we were lucky enough to spot a bald eagle while on the river. In the end, everyone helped and worked together to create a fun experience, even my 8-year-old sister. Words of encouragement and inspiration really create a well-functioning team. We were all the balls that responded to the great leadership of the first one. Leadership, a pillar of the Bronxville Promise, being the one prioritizing and encouraging collaboration. Coming into high school this fall, another experience really showcased the great result of leadership, my science project. It was 9 o'clock on a Monday when we were assigned a lab. My group and I looked through the lab and mistakenly assumed it would be very easy. So during the week for homework, we put in little work as we felt it would be unnecessary. When it was Saturday, we luckily decided to work on the project and not leave it entirely to Sunday. It was Sunday at 11 a.m. when we started to realize that we were in trouble. We were grasping the amount of writing we had for the conclusion, which we initially hoped would be very easy. It was like Saturday and the prior week was a Class 1 rapid and Sunday was a Class 3 rapid. The occasional distraction would occur. However, one person in our group always stepped up and made the group stay on task. At these points, whoever it was did the same thing as the hand that released the ball in a straight line. Morale was also occasionally low. However, there was always one person who would redirect us back in a positive mindset. I do not know if we would have finished without the leadership skills demonstrated by all three members of our group. This was a prime example of collaboration and peer-to-peer leadership. My leadership certainly improved, and being able to help the group in the toughest of times is valuable, I found. These two moments were times when I was able to follow and respond to great leadership, and to also be a leader myself. Looking back, I can see the number of times when in and outside of school, leadership and collaboration were crucial. Throughout our lives, there will always be whitewater moments where it is important to turn to the pillars of the Bronxville Promise to get through a challenging time. Using the promise is a great way to lead a team. Like Newton's Cradle, we must work together collaboratively and in harmony to achieve success. Thank you so much for listening.
Hello. So, to kick off this talk, I'd like you guys to imagine something from your own life. I'd like you to imagine a place or a time or a simple instance where you've sacrificed something to achieve something that was greater. I'll repeat that. When was a time where you sacrificed something that was very important to you in order to get something that was infinitely more important? When you think on that time, think about what you sacrificed and also what you gained. If you could go back in time, would you make that choice again? Would you sacrifice that all again? I found that life is built on fairly basic pillars. Needs, goals, ambitions. Every person has them, and every person's is unique. But you must be aware of the balance between them. You must be aware of which ones you might sacrifice to make one special. Over my life, I've had achievements that I can feel truly proud of, and I feel so glad to have had that. Bronxville has been an integral part of that journey, in the academic side, but in every side. I moved here in 3rd grade, and now I'm starting high school, 9th grade. It's crazy to think about that I've been here all these years. A lot of the time I still feel new. Yet when I think about how impactful it's been for me, it all makes sense. The pillars of the promise include thinking critically, innovating, leading, engaging the world. And, well, I think I found that my journey and my experiences have been very highlighted by that. I can look back and realize this promise has guided me in ways that I thought would never be possible. So let's kick it off. Let's talk about priorities. I've always been a very academically inclined person, so to speak. School was always the most important thing. As my family over there can probably vouch, this is something that's always been part of our lives. It's a family dynamic that's so baked into how I live, how I operate, that I take it for granted. Academics comes first. You have to be good in school. You have to get good grades. Sports comes next, extracurriculars. And anything fun like, I don't know, iPad or YouTube, that's in the backseat. This sort of order grants a discipline. It makes you have some kind of neatness. One thing comes before the other. One thing is more important than the other. But as I mature, I'm granted the perspective to realize that this isn't always the best way to think of things. Saying one thing is always more important than the next is not always healthy. I'll talk more about that in a bit. Before that, let's give you some background. We'll talk about the test, as my dad likes to call it. Math has always been something that's a family thing. My dad and my sister can both talk about this. It's something that my dad's always taught me and that my sister's always learned alongside me. I started to study for the AP Calculus BC exam in 7th grade. I always thought that this was a normal thing. For me, it's something that I've worked for all my life. So why should it not be? Well, people's reactions obviously say differently, but, well, that's me. It's something that's part of my family. So I think it's normal. And this experience of pushing myself what I thought was beyond my limits has taught me important lessons. Lessons that tie right back into those important pillars of the Bronxville Promise. Like critical thinking, innovation, being able to conceive of new ways to learn new things that you thought would be totally out of reach for your entire life. You're able to grasp it, and you're able to say, yes, I did that. Yes, I know that. And I think that's special. Math, in particular, is a lonely discipline. Very lonely, as you can probably tell. I've spent a lot of my life trapped up in my room with a pen and a paper going through countless math problems. In fact, I have a math test tomorrow. Probably should do that tonight. While I was studying for the AP exam, I obviously took it early. I had no peers in school that were doing the same thing. Well, I had my sister, thank you, but she was going through her own stress at the time. She was also taking the exam. Obviously, this kind of caused me to feel a little bit isolated. And as a natural introvert myself, I started to withdraw socially. I closed myself off. I thought, like, oh my gosh, so much stress, and math is more important, right? Math is more important than friends, more important than, like, texting my friends to go out to eat. So why should I waste my time? I need to just focus. But this sort of withdrawal isn't healthy. It cut me off from a support network that could have made the whole experience a lot easier. And only looking back on that does that become clear. Yet, although my peers have kind of drifted, and I had to reclaim that later, I still found support in other people in my life, mentors who were much older than me but provided a sort of support that I can never repay them for. The first person is my dad. I've mentioned him a couple times in this talk already, and he's sitting right over there. It's actually his birthday today. Happy birthday, Daddy. He's been beside me my entire life, and seriously, I can't fathom the sacrifices he's made for me. He says all the time, look, this is your life, you've made this for yourself, but really, he's been a huge part of it. I wouldn't be who I am today without his support. Through all the strife and conflict that math has caused, all of those angry lectures that many people go through, why can't you just multiply this right? I feel that my experiences with math have been so baked into my family dynamic that it's strengthened us. That conflict, we come out stronger afterwards. And that's worth it. People say, you should never fight with your family members. That's unrealistic, really. You should fight about the important things. Because when you fight, you come out stronger. You come out knowing what's important to you. And that order of importance, well, that thing's important. The other person I'd like to mention is Miss Flaherty. She was my math teacher while I was studying for the test in school. And of course, while I was learning material more advanced than what she was teaching me, she was a supporter in a way that I didn't even realize would be possible at the time. I was studying like a maniac, as my dad would say, and of course I brought my books in, was poring over my notes, and Miss Flaherty noticed. She took time to say, hey, I noticed that you're doing other things. I noticed that you're stressed, and I'm here for you. She was my teacher, yes, but she was a mentor, too. She provided a sort of support that, I'm sorry, Daddy, but was a different type of support to my dad's. My dad was rigid and regimented, and he supported that order that he's been supporting my entire life. Miss Flaherty, she taught me that it's not always like that. You can take a step back. You can say there's other parts of life that are worth exploring. You can say that you need to forgive yourself. You need to be disciplined, sure, but just beating yourself up is not going to be productive. Well, they've always been very important to me because they taught me that balance. While my dad taught discipline, of course, my math teacher taught me forgiveness. And going forward, I might not always have that support network. I might not always have my dad and my teacher to back me up, to lift me up when I am down. Instead, I need to do that for myself. So through reflecting, I've realized what is necessary. I need that balance, and I need to know what that balance is to enforce it for myself. In the end, they taught me so many lessons, more than just math. I learned a lot of math too, sure, and I ended up getting a 5 on that AP. Yay! But over the course of learning all of that hard math, I learned more than just math, a lot more. And those lessons will teach me much more than any math topic ever will. It changed a fundamental part of myself, something that I'd assumed for so long that I'd never really reflected on before that. Only through hardship can someone reach their full potential. As a student, a mathematician, an innovator, a thinker, a leader, and most importantly, as a person. Thank you.
We want to say a special thank you for our students and their families for coming out tonight and sharing your experiences with us. Quite impressive and quite a story you all have to tell. And we look forward to the many things you'll do going forward, not only in our school, but outside of school as well. So thank you for joining us tonight. Very much appreciate that, and good luck to you all.
Oh, yeah. A little bit of housekeeping to do before we move on. Can we have a motion to approve the draft minutes of the September 22 meeting and the
So
special
moved.
meeting from October 3rd? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Good evening, everybody. We have a relatively short personnel agenda this evening. You have before you a couple of more teacher aide resignations. We're fortunate enough to have replacements so that there's no further disruption to the students or the program. In addition, we have one new teacher resident in our elementary school. And then you'll see a slight revision to the designated special other stipends. We had a Washington, D.C. 8th grade trip stipend, and the 8th graders have been promised, I guess it's like a rite of passage, they really want to go to Williamsburg, since they were unable to do so last year, so there's a slight change in the coordinator's stipend. Also, we have a new boys varsity assistant coach, as well as the first round of winter coaching roster. So you have before you items A through G.
And are we also voting on this list of stipends, Rachel?
Yeah, just the change, so that is precisely it on the bottom, and you'll see in bold.
Oh,
There's a
got it.
change to the one stipend.
Yep.
2 Williamsburg ones instead of a Williamsburg and a DC.
Yeah. Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
My turn. The board has received a preliminary financial report after closing the books for the month of September. Results are showing expenditures on target with no unanticipated occurrences. If you remember last year when we went through the budget process, we were coping with rising special ed tuition costs and declining special ed revenue and tuition revenue and interest revenue. Little did we know the interest revenue wouldn't become an issue, but we didn't really address inflation as much. And I made it known at the time, not surprisingly, we're seeing pressure in energy and some related contractual lines. I think we can address these at this point without impacting programs. You know, stay tuned. I'll keep the board updated as we go. We have some good news, though, in that we're starting to see a little more clarity regarding revenues for this current year, as non-resident tuition and projected interest income look to substantially exceed budget projections and will go a long way in establishing a base of surplus for the current year. So that's good news. I don't have any financial action items tonight. I'd be happy to entertain any questions. Hearing none, I can move on to a facilities update. We circulated the very preliminary first draft as was received from our consulting architects, Land Associates, of the 5-year plan. It's been received and distributed. Again, it's expensive in its totality, but now, you know, that's the starting point. We now undergo analysis. We get sharper estimates for the costs of a lot of those items. And, you know, this discussion begins with the Facilities Committee and the board regarding prioritization of those items on the list. And we anticipate the final document will serve as a basis for the next building project in the coming years. And, you know, it's a two-pronged thing. We have to see what we need to do to maintain our facility and improve it if we can. And the other prong is, you know, how do we afford it? So, you know, the next year or two, that's what we'll be addressing is both of those issues. Aside from that, our new bus is here. It's registered. The plates were put on today. We're looking for weekday drivers, so if Isabella, if the college application process doesn't work out, give me a call.
Will do.
And I'm hoping to put it to use this weekend with some away trips. And there's no facilities action items.
Dan, can you just, you started to talk a little bit about what next steps would be with this document and working with the facilities committee to prioritize, but can you just paint like a broad brushstroke timeline of that process and how we get to kind of shovel ready and financing ready?
Well, you can just take a look back 5 years, the last time we did this. We're just wrapping up the project that came out of that 5-year plan.
Right.
So I think, you know, if you use that as a model, and there's reasons we want to stretch it out a little bit, you know, without going into too much detail, the permanent financing lends itself to that. Right. You know, we have more debt coming off the books later in this decade as opposed to over the next couple of years. But I would anticipate probably at least a year to fine-tune the plan, prioritize it, get input, and then beyond that, it's you know, working with the architects, developing schematics on what we choose to do. Yeah, it's probably another year. So I think by the time you see, you know, guys showing up in hard hats ready to work, it's at least a few years off.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, didn't Land tell us, like,
even if we wanted to go full speed ahead, it was almost like 3 years from when they received this kind of 5-year plan to actually do something with it,
Yeah.
which is to get the plans in place, get the financing in place, hire the contractors. Because I was a little worried when they started talking
Yeah.
about some of these
Plus
things.
approvals of the state too.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
takes 4 or
it's a,
5
Yeah.
months there.
it's a process, and
Yeah.
so they thought it was like, literally 3 years from when, what was it, we were on the roof, August, September, whenever that
Yep,
was.
At the
and,
earliest.
Yeah.
At the earliest.
and it's important to note that this plan, unlike the one 5 years ago, doesn't involve a lot of addition to the building. So it doesn't lend itself to doing a lot of work during the school year. You know, it will be really summer-focused work, I think.
And what would you anticipate would be the timing of another bond offering once we've got capacity for it?
We can massage that, you know, even if we do the work in, just say, 3 years and we finish it in 5 years, but it's to our advantage to issue bonds in 7 years, we can roll over notes, and just pay interest only for a couple of years.
Okay.
You know, that's work that the finance committee will do over the next few years, you know, in hand in glove with what the facilities committee is going to do on the construction
Yep.
side.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan on facilities?
Yeah, so we have, under other action items, there are 2 items. The first is to ask the board to approve Christine Dowd and Anthony Baglica as lead evaluators of teachers. They completed their training. You have to formally approve that. That gives them the ability to observe teachers formally. So that's the first motion. So we'll do separately. The other, it's up to you.
Is the other one,
The other one's the trips.
yeah,
Trips.
we'll do them
Separate.
separately,
Okay.
sure. Motion, any questions about this action item?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Then we have a couple of trips. You know, evidently the girls lacrosse team is not satisfied with beating everybody in New York and Connecticut. They want to go down and you know, do some damage in Florida. So they want to go to the Disney complex for spring break. And then we have what used to be known as the Nicaragua trip, which is, for the last few times, has been the Dominican Republic. We want to get back to doing that again on spring break. And just the reason the board approves these trips is when the board approves these trips, they're covered through our insurance policy. We buy trip insurance for these trips now, so that in the event there's reason to cancel, you know, if it becomes you know, some kind of political hotbed, or, you know, there's another COVID outbreak, you know, people will get most of their money back.
And I remember when it was the Nicaragua trip, how long have they been going to the DR?
I think they've done it twice.
Yeah,
Twice.
last 2 times.
And that was because Nicaragua became too politically
Yeah.
unstable.
Yeah, but they've been doing this, he's been doing this service trip for a very long time.
Yes.
It's a very, very popular trip. And, you know, the State Department, I guess, rating, they just updated them at the beginning of October, is fine for the DR right now. It's not great for Haiti.
Different side of the island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we obviously monitor that. Even after the board approves the trip, we continue to monitor that, yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's exciting that we, you know, after 2 years of not being able to do these kind of trips, we have, you know, a couple of Williamsburg trips. We're now back to sports trips and this trip as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's good news.
Questions? Anybody have questions or comments? Motion to approve these trips.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Thank you.
Okay, on to committee reports. There haven't been a ton of meetings since our last board meeting. Eddie, I think you've been to some PTA meetings, there's been a safety committee meeting, there's been, Connie, you went to the trouble of sending me a list of all those meetings, and now I can't find your email. So I'll just ask in general, does anyone have anything to report from any committee meetings or liaison work?
I'll just mention that the PTA has been extremely busy with their start of year programs, parent fundraisers and homecoming and the 100-year reunion, and they've been raising a lot of money, and all of the leadership and the chairs and all the volunteers are doing a great job. So we should be very thankful to have them.
They are, and I would say also that the board is just a little bit jealous of the great job the PTA is doing with communications. So, bravo PTA, and we hope to take a page from your book and continue to improve our communications as well.
We need your website development.
They also sponsored a new family social over the Bronxville Field Club that was well done and well received.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
That's great. Any other committee reports or updates?
Audit committee will be meeting before the next board meeting. We'll have draft financial statements within the next 2 weeks.
Great. Great. So we have coming up November 7th for our next long-range planning workshop. November 17th, my 21st wedding anniversary is our
Thank you for sharing with us.
next regular board meeting. And I think we mentioned that NPC meeting as well. So with that, I think hopefully we're opening up that form for if anyone who is watching remotely wishes to ask a question, it will begin to, you can put your question in that form, which you can access through the link on the YouTube page or through the agenda. And we'll give that a few minutes to come through if there are any questions. And of course, anyone attending in person, please feel free to ask a question. Should we refresh, Rory?
I don't think you have to refresh, right? Brad, you don't have to refresh, right? It's dynamic. The shared notes.
And thank you to Brad Ashley for making this happen.
Nope. That's Brad. Doing a test, just make sure it was okay. Was your question, did it work?
Yes.
Okay, it works.
All right, should we just give this a minute or two? Let's give it one more minute. If you have a question, now's the time. If there are no questions, everyone is always welcome to reach out to a board member with a question at any time. If there are no questions tonight, then we'll just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.